how it works. We're going to discuss how Java works, the different programming languages, what a programming language is, what the usefulness of it is. And also, what we're going to start out with is that we're going to start out with the business side of things, right? If you guys have followed me on Instagram, if you guys have followed me on LinkedIn, if you guys have been just keeping up with the general scope of software engineering over the past few years, if you look at the Forbes top 20 people, right? 15 of those started out as software engineers. So people like Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, all those people were software engineers at first. If you realize what's taking place in the world is that a lot of the wealth transfer now is going to tech companies. It's going to software engineers. It's going to people that create these tech ideas and apps and mobile to be able to make things more efficient, to make things faster, to make things cheaper and more efficient for everybody. So Zachary can't get the audio. Let me make sure. Can everybody hear my audio? I don't want to continue without making sure everybody can hear the audio because I am live right now. So, I mean, who can't hear the audio right now? So most people can. So we're going to go ahead and get started based on that. Most people can hear the audio. So whoever the outliers who can't hear the audio, they can't. That's just, you have to get the copy of the presentation later. So let's go ahead and get started. I don't want to get lost. We got a lot of ground to cover here. So back to what I was saying is that if you notice what's happening in the world is that all the wealth, all the power is now going to software engineers. You got people like Jeff Bezos. You got people like Bill Gates. These are all former software engineers. And what's happening in the world is you see there's a shift from manufacturing to technology, especially in the United States. So what I want to do here is I want to give you guys two sides of the what's happening, right? The business side of software engineering, the business side of web development, app development, website development, and also, the technical side, how to create a website. I mean, how to create an application. What languages work with different presentations, things like that. So I want to tell you guys a little bit about me. So if you guys have been following me, you know that I've been involved in software engineering for the last, since I was a kid, really. I started software engineering when I was a teenager. I was like 13 or 14. We couldn't afford a computer, but what we could afford is those T85 calculators, right? So the T85 calculator had a programming option. So you could program small applications. And that's where I learned, the first place I learned how to program with, because, we couldn't afford computers. We couldn't afford things like that. My mom was a hard worker, but we just couldn't. Back in those days, they were expensive, a lot more expensive than they are today. So I learned how to program actually on a TI-85 calculator, a Texas Instrument. That was the first time I was ever exposed to computers. And once I got old enough, senior in high school, I saved up enough money to get a web TV. If you guys remember what a web TV was, it was a small appliance, kind of like a VCR or a DVD player that you put on top of your TV, and it was able to connect to the internet. So that was the first experience I ever had with HTML, JavaScript, thing. And I learned, I furthered my skills there. So later on in that year, I graduated high school. I signed up for computer science. I did a 4-year degree in software engineering. So for a couple of years, I worked at an artificial intelligence company in Nashville. So after that, I went back to actually play basketball for a couple of years. But after that, I went and studied for my graduate degree at USF, where I studied software engineering with specialization in software security. So and after I finished with that, I started my own company. And for about 5 or 6 years, I ran a company that did website software and app development. So I ran that for a while. So after that experience, I decided to create my own apps. Right. So during those years, I had my own development company. I created an app called KeyProwler. KeyProwler was an app that monitored computers. So if you had a child who was, you thought that needed to be monitored, you thought they were getting into some stuff you didn't want them to, you would install this on your computer and it would monitor it. It would search for keywords like marijuana or something, sex or whatever, and it would send reports back to the parents. So I made a decent amount of money on that project. So after that, I sold that project. So the biggest project I was sold was the second one. So it was a company that was related to blockchain. It was called ICO Ranker. We ran that. I built that in about 3 or 4 months. We ran it for about a year, and we were able to sell that for almost $2 million. So I do have experience in both the business side and the software engineering side. Like I said, I've studied 6, 7 years in software engineering, and I also have been involved in many projects. We actually have a few projects right now we're building up. So that's my background. So that's the reason, I just want to let you guys know where this knowledge I have comes from. It comes from experience. It comes from being in the field. It doesn't, and I didn't just, read a book, or I'm not regurgitating this experience to you. This is 10, 15 years of me working in the industry actively. So this is very valuable information for you guys. You guys can take this information and it can cut off years of your any project you create or anything you decide to do afterwards. So let's go ahead and get started. So first thing I want to talk about is and this is especially true for minorities, and I'll tell you this before we get started, is that Google, 3% of Google's workforce, 3% of the engineers are Hispanics and blacks, 3%, right? And Facebook, Microsoft, all those companies are about the same. So 97% aren't Hispanics or blacks. And this is one thing that's very passionate to me, is that because I come from that background, because my kids are from that background, I'm very passionate on getting more minorities into this field. Because if you look at what I'm saying here, the average software engineer in America makes $110,000 a year, well above the average, salary. Which this is considered a upper high, a lower upper, what is it? Not upper middle class. It's more past lower upper class. It's a lower upper class salary. It puts you into another tax bracket. And this is something that people leave out, is that Google, Microsoft, Apple, those companies don't require a degree to work there. Those companies don't say you have to go 4 years to get a bachelor's. They don't say that you have to get like a master's. Those people, that's what I love about software engineering, is that it's all about talent and skill. A lot of times you go to interviews, they don't ask you questions like, how are you like? What would you do in this situation? No, they put a board up and say, you need to complete this problem. So I want you to get on this board and you solve this problem. If you can do that, you got the job. And that's what I love about software engineering, is because it's the great equalizer. It's not about who you know. It's not about, what school you went to, or how good you could talk, or how good you could speak in interviews. It's about what you know and can you execute. And that's why I love this so much. But as you can see, the average software engineer makes $110,000 a year. And these are not geniuses. Like, a lot of people think all software engineers are geniuses. Yeah, the very best ones are. But the average run-of-the-mill software engineer is the average dude that studied and learned the talent, learned the skill. That's what the average software engineer is. He's not a genius. He's not some guy with glasses and like a scientist, a mad scientist. He's just a regular guy that learned the skill. So, and this is another stat that I like to show, is that Facebook makes, even though Facebook pays out $160,000 a software engineer, they make $630,000 off each one of those engineers. So everybody they hire an engineer, they pay them, $160,000, $200,000 a year, and their return on investment on an engineer is $600,000. That shows you how much one software engineer is worth. That shows you how much you can sometimes not work for a company, and this is up to you guys. You can work for a company, or you don't have to, but you can work for a company. You can make good money, but you can make even more going off on your own in some cases. Some people don't have those skills. Some people do. Some people would rather be an employee. Some people would rather go off on their own. But if you can see that the value of one software engineer can be 700, 800, add in the original salary, it could be $800,000. You could, sometimes you could be what's called a consultant or a contractor, and you can make $200 an hour sometimes. And another thing I like to say is that the highest paid software engineer at Google makes $3 million a year. And a lot of people don't know that. $3 million a year. And people, that's a lot of money. And you have to think about this. You have to put it into perspective. A software engineer's lifetime salary is better than the average NBA salary. And a lot of people are like, what? NBA players make $4 or $5 million a year? Yeah, they do. But they make it over 4 or 5 years, 10 years if they're lucky. A software engineer can make $200,000, $150,000 a year for 30 years. They make, over their lifetime, they make more than most NBA players. And that's the reason why I love software engineering. You can be poor, you cannot have none, you could study hard, and you can come out of poverty. I mean, it's the best opportunity of our lifetime, and it saddens me that so many people don't take advantage of this. So, and back when I was, I had my mobile application web development firm. This is the prices that we charge for a web application. Some of them will take, a couple of days. Some will take 6 months, but we charge between 15,000 and 500,000 to build apps for people. And that's a pretty good project, for if sometimes you could do it with one person, sometimes you need a team of people, but some projects were like 20, 30,000, and I could do it by myself in a month. So there's a lot of money in this industry. So I just wanted to get you guys excited about the kind of money, the kind of opportunities that are out there, before we get into the business side of software engineering. Then later on, we'll talk about the technical side. And when we build a program, we'll let you guys see how it works. We'll let you guys follow along. But before we get into anything, I want to tell you guys about one of my favorite quotes from Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs, my favorite quote from him is "Real artists ship." And what that means is that it comes from a meeting that Steve Jobs, when he was trying to push the Apple One, which is a computer back in the 80s, he was dealing with a lot of people who had great talent, a lot of smart engineers, a lot of smart both electrical engineers and also software engineers. These are very, very smart people that used to work for Apple. So a lot of these people were prima donnas. They wanted their work to be perfect. They wanted their work to have all the features, all the bells and whistles before it got out into the public. And Steve Jobs wanted to get the Apple One out. He wanted to ship it. And he had these people who considered themselves artists, software engineers and mechanical engineers, that didn't want to ship unless it was perfect. So in one of these meetings, he was arguing with them, and he screamed this out: "Real artists ship," because all that means is that you're not an artist until you get your product or your art into the public. If it's in your garage, if you're constantly thinking about it, constantly changing, not wanting people to see it, then it's worthless. You're not a real artist unless you ship your art. And that's what he said to his engineers. And that's what quote I love so much, is that it puts everything in perspective. It makes you think there's a balance between perfection and actually getting something out there. There's a balance there. And we're going to talk about this more in later on in the presentation. So is there anything on the screen, or do I need to close? Can you guys see the screen? So it should say "Real artist ship" here. All right, can everybody see that? The presentation? Yeah, so most people said yes. I'm moving on. So the first 45 minutes or so, we're going to talk about the business software. And later on, we're going to get into the technical side. I want to talk about the business side first because it's easier for people to grasp. It's easier for people to understand. So I want to talk about that first, and later on move into technical side. So if you guys look at the chat, there's a pinned message at the top, and that's the compiler we're going to use to do our Java application later. So we'll get into that later. So let's go back. So the business of software, right? We're going to talk about how you can take software code, which is just a bunch of letters, a bunch of things you could turn into money. How you could take this software code, how you can develop it, market it, and put it out there and make money from it. Like I said, that's one thing I've always been able to make money on is software. When I was a kid, I tried eBay. When I was in college, I tried it. Nothing ever worked out, but I was very, very good at making money from software, whether it be consulting, whether it be creating apps and selling it, whether it will be creating websites and selling advertising. I was able to do everything, in the last 10 years. And like it's just an easy, and once you learn this skill, it's an easy, great way to make money because you have a skill you can, and that's what's so beautiful about this is that once you learn how to be a software engineer, once you learn how it works, how it functions, you don't have to learn how to do it. You can, fully. You can learn just basically how to create a software engineer, and you can manage other people doing it, but you have to know how it works, what happens, so you're able to officially manage those people. So there's two ways you can create software. One is you can create it yourself. Two is you can hire somebody else to do it. So you need to know the basics to do either one. So that's where we're starting at, just the basic business of software, right? So what we're going to talk about is creating and marketing an app first, right? We're going to talk about creating a vision, coming up with an idea, fleshing that idea out. We're going to talk about market research. We're going to talk about designing and developing. We're going to talk about how you get paid. And we're going to talk finally about branding. So the first thing in any project, regardless if it's software engineering, if it's anything, you have to create a vision. And a vision without action is merely a dream. Action without vision just passes time, but vision without action can change. Vision with action can change the world. So if you have vision and you're also able to do the action behind it, that's very, very powerful. Is that a lot of people have ideas, but they can't execute those ideas. Gavin, the presentation is on the screen. It's to the left if you can see it. Just refresh the page and maybe you can see it. So, and that's a lot of times people come up with these ideas. They say, I want to, come up with a great app idea, but they don't have the execution or to get it done. And like I said, an idea without execution is worthless. And that's a lot of times people don't understand that concept, is that like right now I can come up with an idea for a flying car, but I can't execute that idea. I don't know how to start building a flying car. I don't know how the engineering behind it. I don't know the physics behind it. So if I can't get it done, it's worthless. And everybody can have an idea about a flying car, but whoever executes that idea is going to be a billionaire. So that's the difference between, people who get stuff done and people don't, is that they have vision, they have an idea, and they're able to execute that. And another thing I want to say before I get into this any further is that if you guys have questions, if you guys have anything that I'm going too fast on or something you don't quite understand, ask a question. Don't feel embarrassed. Don't feel bad. That's what this is for. It's for you guys to learn. It's for you guys to get new information, for you guys to use this in your lives, So I want to make sure you guys understand it 100% before you leave. I want to make sure you guys get everything. So ask questions. If you need me to clarify something, stop and type it in the questions and answers and make sure I'm able to clarify for you, because I don't want you guys to walk away and still be confused. So make sure you ask your questions whenever they come across your mind. So getting an idea about an app idea or a website or what's called, the ideas are all around you. People don't realize that. It's that if you keep your ears open, you listen to people's grievances, people's problems with life. A lot of times the ideas are right around you. And when I told you guys about the key problem idea I had, the reason why I was able to create that idea is because I was at work one day and I was in the break room and I heard a parent talking about if they needed a simple app to be able to monitor their kids on. Back then it was Myspace. If you guys are older, or my age, in your late 30s, you may remember Myspace. Myspace was an app similar to Facebook, but it was a lot more messy, a lot more chaotic. So I heard people in the break room talking about this, and I went home immediately and I started writing down my ideas and about how to create that app. This was 15 years ago. And I was, 23, 24 years old, but that was the first app idea I ever had. And it was because I kept my ears open and I was listening to what people were saying, what people were saying about different things, what people were saying. I wish I had this. I wish I had that. Does anybody know where I can find this? Those are all key points that you should listen to for app ideas. A lot of people get focused in on something they like or something that they want to do, but a lot of times the greatest ideas come from stuff that you may not even know that's needed. You may not even know that something's out there. You may be some kind of niche or some industry that you may not even understand, and you'll see a need for something. You can make a lot of money like that. A lot of times the cool stuff, social media apps, dating apps, stuff like that, all the space is already taken up. But on the lower end, the different things, the niche apps, the certain industries, whatever, it's a lot of money to be still made in those industries. So, and always avoid, I have a notebook, and I've had the same notebook for 15 years, 20 years. So it's not the same notebook, but it's the same concept. I keep a notebook with me at all times. So when I hear an idea, I write down in the book. And sometimes I'll spend like 20 minutes drawing something out. And then I'll leave it in the book. And, sometimes 2 days later, I say, oh, that's stupid. That's not going to work. Sometimes it does work. Sometimes the idea does work. So I'll write down my ideas constantly. And I'll review them once a week to see if, maybe I was, wasn't thinking clearly that day. Or maybe I had a great idea that day. So I always write down my ideas and reevaluate them later. And I don't ever rush in on an idea, because you have to be careful with that. Is that when you have an idea, don't rush and pay all the stuff and pay all the stuff, logos and this instantly, because you want to make sure you think it through. Like I said, look in niches and uncool spaces. That's where a lot of money can still be made. And remember to remove emotion. Think logically. And I'll tell you a story of a guy. When I owned my software development company a few years ago, there was a guy, and I'm gonna tell you how he missed out on a lot of money in two ways. And it was based because he was thinking emotionally and not logically. The guy had a great idea, an amazing idea. When he came to me and he told me this idea, I was like, man, this idea is going to change the world. And this was 8 years ago or so. So his idea was to, medical data. Like if you go to the doctor, if you go to the dentist, every time you have to fill out a form, because there's still today no centralized way to get that data, around. It's all convoluted and it's hard to get the data around. So he came up with a central database for all the data to go into. All right, so that's pretty easy to do. But what he did come up with is that he was gonna put an app on the Android, on the iPhones, that is gonna be a swipe for an emergency. So when you're in an emergency, you press swipe. It would be a swipe on the screen like iPhone has now today. They didn't have it 8 years ago. You're gonna swipe it, and then instantly your medical data would instantly get uploaded to the 911 system. And then the 911 operator would see the data on the screen. It could help you with sending out an ambulance, sending out policemen or firefighters or whatever. And he had this idea, and we he came to us, he paid us a certain amount of money, and we executed that idea. So, but the problem is that the reason why he came up with the idea is because his mom died of cancer a few years ago, and the ambulance wasn't able to take care of her because they didn't have the data. So he came up with this whole idea and he created it. So it was a great idea, right? So the problem with it is that he was very, very emotionally attached to the idea. He didn't want to change it. It was what it was. He didn't want to monitor it. And one time, we had an opportunity one time, and I went with him to this meeting with the Florida 911 system, and they wanted to buy a part of it from him, but he didn't want to change the data because he was emotionally attached to it. He didn't want to change how the data came across. He was so emotionally attached to his project, he couldn't think logically, and he lost a lot of money because of that. Now the project is dead. But if he was able to think logically, if he's able to think, financially, he would be a millionaire by now. So the second thing, after you come up with an idea, after you come up with you fine tune that idea, you have to do market research, right? You have to figure out, does everybody really, is this something everybody wants? Is this something everybody really needs? So the first thing you got to figure out is the positioning of your app, like where it's going to fit in the marketplace. Where is it? Is it already too much competition out there? And one of the things that always put people off, and it's a phrase that I've heard for 10 years, and I've always told people to forget about that. And it's a phrase, you'll come up with an idea, you'll tell your friends, hey, I got this idea, and they already have that. Oh, that's already an app for that. That's not a reason to stop doing what you're doing. That's not a reason to there's not a reason to stop what you're doing at all. That's just that's nothing. So somebody says, Rafi says, Armando, if we can get an app done ourselves, how can we partner with somebody like yourself? You'd have to DM me later or email me, and we can talk about that later. That's something I wouldn't want to get into here. It's more about generic information. So back to what I was saying is that phrase, oh, they already have that. That phrase doesn't deter me from anything, because you have to remember that when Starbucks came out, they already had coffee. Coffee was everywhere. You could walk to a gas station and get 20-cent coffee back then. Every doctor's office gives out coffee. Coffee is free all over the place. So how was Starbucks able to be so successful if coffee's everywhere? They already have coffee. So how was Starbucks able to be successful? It's because Starbucks found a position in the marketplace. They found a premium position. McDonald's coffee was, mid-grade. Gas station coffee was low-grade, low, and you had middle market. And then Starbucks had a premium market. So they were able to find a hole in the marketplace. There was no such thing as a premium coffee back then, and they filled that hole. They positioned their product in that hole. Now Starbucks is everywhere. If you go back 30 years, 40 years ago, people would have said nobody would ever have paid $5, $6 for a cup of coffee, ever. But they do it every day now because Starbucks found the position in the market and they put their product in there. Same thing with apps. You find a hole in a marketplace, you could put your app right in there. And another one is that's price. And even with the coffees, I still believe that there's like in clothing, you have your low clothing Walmart brand, you have your mid grade like Target brand, you have your Nike, Reebok, those types of clothing. Then you have your premium brand, right, of clothing. It's like like Polo, that brand. Then you have your hyper premium, and that's Louis Vuitton, that's Gucci, so. I think that the coffee market, and it's just a side right here. I think the coffee market has room for a hyper premium coffee. I think that there's room right now in the coffee market for a coffee that's more expensive than Starbucks. I think there's room for that. Now, I actually explored that idea a few years ago, but I think there is room still for that in the coffee market. So, and you can see a coffee looks like a flooded market, but it's actually not. It's not enough premium competitors in there. So you could still get in a market like that and still do well. And you got to remember, that's just price. So now we're talking about ease of use, right? So before Tinder, you had Match.com, you had eHarmony, you had I don't know if you dating.com or whatever. So there was tons of dating apps already out there. So how was Tinder able to be successful? Because they figured out a hole in the market. They figured out that they can create profiles quickly and they could get you could pick people or whatever quickly based on a picture and a few words. They were able to find a hole in the marketplace due to ease of use. So Match.com and eHarmony, I've signed up for eHarmony years ago. It's very, very difficult. There's a lot of questions. I mean, you can sit there for an hour filling out those questions. With Tinder, you press a button, your Facebook or your Instagram profile gets uploaded, and you're swiping in 5 minutes. That's how they was able to be so successful, is they found a hole in the market. That was ease of use. And another is niches, right? So Grindr is another dating app made specifically for homosexuals and bisexual men and women. So that's another way you can get in, is a niche. So just because they already have that doesn't mean you can't find a place in that market. That means you just got to figure out, where's my position. And here's some more examples, right? So Starbucks created a premium coffee. Facebook, you got to remember, Facebook took the MySpace. They just stole the MySpace model. Basically, MySpace was the biggest social media website in the world at the time. But Facebook was very, very complicated. There was no privacy. People had HTML. It was messy. It wasn't consistent. I didn't understand what I was doing half the time. So Facebook they listened to people. So if you listen to people, you'll realize that people are having problems with a certain product, and you're able to fix that. So Facebook made a consistent, easy to use, straightforward application, and they were able to take 100% of MySpace's business within 2 or 3 years, right? And we talked about Tinder. They created a simple, bare bones dating experience, and that's why they were able to almost take over the dating scene. I mean, everybody uses Tinder. I mean, more people use Tinder now than eHarmony and Match.com. So we'll go into developing your app, right? So after you come up with an idea, you fine tune it, you figure it out, you research it, you figure out where it's going to place it. You have to develop it, right? So how are you going to do that? So programming is just all programming is breaking up. You take one gigantic task, social media site, or something, or Tinder, or whatever, or Uber, and you break that big gigantic task into smaller, more manageable pieces. And that's what all programming is that you break it down to instructions and you write those instructions out. And we'll go over an example of an app later, and we'll actually write the app together in about 20 minutes. So when you're developing a product, and this page right here, if you guys do decide later on to either develop your own applications or pay somebody to do it or figure it out later, this is the most important thing there possibly is. And I used to tell clients this all the time, and people just didn't understand it, but it's the most important thing in developing new software. And that's called minimal viable product, MVP, a product. And a minimal viable product is just enough features to effectively deploy the product and nothing else. So any feature that you don't have to have, you don't deploy it. You don't put it in the application. And the reason is behind that, and that goes back to that real artist ship quote that we started out with, is that if you don't get your product out there, it's worthless. If you're sitting around trying to make it perfect, adding features, it's worthless. But you have to remember, the more features you add, the more the cost is. The more you have to test it, the more things that can break. So you always send out a product with the least possible features just to make sure that the idea is viable. And once the idea is viable, yeah, you go forward then. And the purpose of this is to make sure you can test the product, the base product, with the minimal resources. And you also it also ensures that you're able to get the product to the customers as early as possible. And you have sometimes it also creates a base for other products. Because sometimes with products, you put something out there, and I've done this before too. You'll come up with an application, you'll put it out there, and then your users will use it in a way you never thought that they would use it like that. And now you got a whole nother product out there. So sometimes that happens. Sometimes you put something out and you think people are going to use it one way, and they use it a whole different way. And now you can market to that industry also, and you make more money. But if you don't have a good minimal viable product, a good base, none of that stuff can happen. So I got some more questions over here. So what do you think about the Bumble platform? Yeah, the Bumble platform is another it was another way that a company figured out how to place a product in an already, a market that's already over flooded. And I still think there's a bunch of different ways you can get apps into the dating industry right now. I think that there's ways you can get more women engaged. If you can figure out a way to get women engaged, you have a gold mine there. Because right now, a few years ago, about 5 years ago, I did an analysis on all the dating apps that were out there. And that was back then, that was one of the biggest problems that the dating apps has is getting women engaged. And that's what Bumble's trying to do. And that was actually a genius idea. But I think there's a lot of space in that industry still for a lot of innovations and a lot of money to be made. And we'll talk about something else that you guys may not know too, and it'll give you guys a lot of good ideas. So when you're designing an application, even if you're going to make it yourself, or if you're going to get somebody else to do it, you always got to start out with a wireframing or prototyping. And all it is just drawing things on a piece of paper. Drawing where this button's going to go, what it's going to look like here, the layout's going to be. You have to do that because you have to get your mind thinking. You have to get, your flow going, so you'll figure out what's needed in this application. So when I do this, a lot of times I use other applications that are similar, and I copy their flow. And the reason why I do this is because users don't like unfamiliar designs. So if you come up with something completely new, people get confused and they stop using your app. And I'll give you a good example. Let's say right now, I created a car that ran, 100 miles a gallon. The car was comfortable, it was fast, it was spacious, it looked good on the outside. But the only thing that was different is that instead of a steering wheel, you drove it with two levers on the side of the seat. One, you push the lever up to go forward, you push the other one back to go back. So because of that design feature, nobody would use the car. I don't care how fast it is, how much gas it uses. Nobody wants to use an unfamiliar design. And that's an unfamiliar design. People are used to a steering wheel and two pedals, brake and a gas. People don't want to change. People don't want to have to figure out this new car. Nobody would buy that car just simply because of that. So here's an example of a rapid prototype, and that's what I'm talking about, wireframing and drawing it out. And you can do this on graph paper. You don't have to have fancy tools. You don't have to have a computer. Most people I know that's in this industry do it like this. They draw it out. And this is a very, very powerful tool to have, because once you understand this and you're able to draw it out, you can use this to further develop your ideas, to make sure it's right, to show people, to show investors. So this is something you could do with no programming knowledge at all. You could prototype something, draw it out on graph paper, and now you have something you can show people, something you can show investors, something that you can something tangible immediately. So like I told you guys before, there's two ways that you can get an app developed. One is do it yourself. And that's what we're going to teach you guys later in these couple of hours is how to do it yourself. We're going to do an application. So when you do it yourself, you have more control because you know the code, because you know how it works, because you know how it's laid out. You can fix stuff faster. You can change stuff faster. It's more cost effective because you didn't have to pay anybody to do it because you did it yourself. But you got to remember another thing is a hidden cost there, and time is a resource. Time is just I equate time to money, and a lot of people don't do that, but I do. Uh, so it's my time. Sometimes anybody's time can be more important. You have to make sure you evaluate that properly, and make sure that your time. You don't quit a job paying $80,000 a year to develop an app for that year when you could have paid somebody else to do it for 20. You see what I'm saying? You could have kept your job, paid somebody else to do it, and you would have had both incomes. So you have to be able to evaluate your time because if you do it yourself, you have to do it. You have to be time efficient too. But also, when you do it yourself, it's less risky because you didn't put any cash out there. The other way is, I started out my career doing almost all of it myself. That's why I was able to learn it. I was able to learn software engineering a lot faster. Uh, but now, when I get something done, I hire somebody else. I don't do it a lot of stuff myself anymore because I don't have a lot of time during the week. So it's easier just to hire somebody, and I know the ins and outs of hiring people. So the sites that a lot of sites that I use, I have freelancers that I go to now. But if I need somebody to do something that I don't have, it's already in my Rolodex. I go to Odesk or I go to Freelancer, right? And no, Odesk and Freelancer are mostly offshore talent. They're not here in the States. They're usually in India or Eastern Europe or something like that. But they're usually cheaper, but they're also more risky and require more management. So you have to stay on top of these people. You have to, they don't have the skill set of creativity that you have. So you have to always constantly tell them exactly what you want. Fiverr is a great. Johnny said Fiverr is a great resource for small tasks like logos. Like great resource for logos. Great resource for small programming tasks. But I've never been successful on Fiverr with a large program. Even like a small a complex small task, it's always came out bad. So if it's a very, very small task like fixing an application or doing something, yeah, Fiverr's yeah, I haven't used Odesk in a while. Now I remember it is called Upwork. So yeah, that shows you how long ago I used that site. So it was called Odesk back then. And there's also another way you can go onshore. That's like I had a software development company, right? So that's an onshore talent. So you can hire people in your local city and in major cities like New York, LA, or whatever. And these people will do your work for you. And those people don't require a lot of management. It's less risky too because you can sue them. You can't sue somebody from India, but you can sue somebody from New York or from the town you live in. So that means that it's less risky, but it also requires less management. But the problem is that it's way more expensive. So a project you can get done on with offshore talent for 5,000 would be 80, 90, 100,000 with onshore talent. So it just depends on what you want. Yeah, Fiverr is a great resource, and I give you that. Fiverr is excellent, like for especially for graphic design, especially for small tasks, especially for like configurations on a website, WordPress, stuff like that. It's a great resource. But on complex programming, I've never had success on Fiverr. And this is another thing, right? So a code base is how you start your application, right? And and after you decide if you're going to do it yourself or when you decide I'm going to do this program for myself. Now you can start with a blank page and start typing out your code, or you can get existing code that's already out there and just edit it. And that's called modifying a template, modifying something that's already out there. And a lot of times, modifying a template or modifying code that's already out there makes a lot more sense than starting from scratch. If you start from scratch, you'll learn more. So people that are starting out, I would always say, do your first project from scratch. But from scratch takes more time. It's more expensive time-wise. It takes a lot of testing because now you have a brand new, application that's never been tested. But you also have more control, and it's faster to get things done because you're doing it yourself. So modifying a template, right? If somebody says my app is just like blah blah blah, but with a twist, then you should probably be, reskinning or editing the app that it's already out there. And the reason is because it takes less time, it's more cost effective. The code base has already been tested. And that's very important. Is that you're not putting code out there that's going to break on people because they've already tested it. So there's places out there where you can buy code. And I'll show you guys one right now. So you guys, because a lot of people don't know about this. So let me switch to my screen. Is it share screen? So let me know when you guys can see my screen. So look at can you guys see my screen now? So if you can, I'll wait till somebody gives me an affirmative. Okay, so you guys can see it. So I'm on I'm on Code Canyon right now. All right, so Code Canyon is a resource that I've used a lot in the past, and I was able to some of the products I've sold, some of the products I've made money off of, I've started with this. And it's a great resource. Like, for example, let's say you wanted to create a Tinder app, right? You wanted to create an app just like Tinder, but you wanted to change one thing. So you look in this and you buy a Tinder mobile app that already exists. So here we go. That's a UI. You don't want that. That's not. Here we go. This is one. So this is a code base that you can purchase. You can purchase this. And it already has all the features. It already looks kind of like Tinder. It already works. It already has all the features you want. Let's say you wanted to change one little thing like Bumble. You wanted to change one feature. It would be more cost effective to buy something like this for $34 and change it yourself or hire somebody else to do it. And in many cases, you have to buy the extended license, but it's still a lot more cost effective than doing it yourself. If you built a site like this or an app like this with a company, onshore company, it would cost $40,000, $50,000. Offshore would cost you $10,000, $20,000. But here you can buy it for $170, learn how to code yourself, or hire somebody to change it for you and put it out there you can have an app out there for less than $1,000. And you would start making money on it. So that's why this method is so powerful. Let me go back to my slides here. So like I said, in the past, I've used that resource a lot. I've bought apps, I've edited them, and I put them out there. That's perfectly legal. There's nothing unethical or illegal about that. It's just developers put this stuff out there because that's what they do. They develop stuff that everybody can use. CodeCanyon.net. So that's where those developers make their money. They put common apps out there that people take and they edit them. So this is just something a lot of people don't know about. That's like a lot of the apps you see on the App Store, whatever, are just copies of these. They're apps that people bought and edited. They reskinned it, like I think Jay said earlier. You can reskin it. You can put your own logo in there. You can put your own colors. You can change a feature or two, and now it's your app. So, and I know somebody asked earlier, how do people make money on free sites? And we're going to talk about that in getting paid, how you get paid for software code, right? So you can always work. You can always, let me see this quick. Rafi says, Armando, what kind of skills would we need to look at for a developer that can build off of Code Canyon? All right, so first of all, that's another thing we need to talk about Code Canyon. As the developers that develop, to put the code out there, there are a lot of those guys are from overseas. So India, China, Eastern Europe. So those guys, a lot of times if you reach out to them, and I've done this before, you reach out to them, tell you what you want, they'll give you a quote, a few $100s to add this feature to you, to reskin it, to add your logo. A lot of times you could reach out to the developer directly, the person who created the code, And because they created it, they can do it a lot faster than a third party, and they'll give you a better price. And I've done that before. I've bought an app there. I direct, I asked the developer, can you do this for me? Whatever. I don't have time to figure out all the code and do all this. You could do it in 2 hours because you know the code. And the guy does it in 2 hours, sends it back, charges me $100. It would have took me, 2-3 days because I don't know the code. I would have to go through everything, understand it, and then make the changes. He already knows because he created it. Reskin simply means you change the colors, the design, and the logo to fit whatever market, whatever branding you're looking for. That's what reskinning is. They use that term in a lot, like in gaming, in a lot of things. So, but it's used in this case just it means to change the logo, change the colors, and make it your own. So that's what that is. So, and somebody asked earlier, they were like, so how do you get paid for a free app, right? Like somebody's on an app for free. How's the person or the company getting paid for that? Well, they get paid because of advertising. So that's the number one way people make money online. My last site I sold for it was right under $2 million. All we did is sell ads on that site. That's all we did. We provided free information. We had an artificial intelligence engine that would rate certain investment products, vehicles, and people would request that information. We gave it away for free, but because we had so much traffic, we had 1 million hits a month sometimes. It was very valuable to advertise. So we sold advertising on the site. So we made all of our money on advertising on that site. So when somebody came along, 6 months, 7 months later, the value was in the people coming to the site, the attention, the page views, the users. So that's why the site was worth so much, because it had so much attention. That's the reason why we were able to sell it. So we didn't charge people to use the service. We didn't, pay people to log in. It was all free, but we charged other people to advertise on the site to get in front of those users. Because if you start a website, like I'll give you a good example, Credit Karma, right? Credit Karma is a perfect example of a free app that's able to make millions and millions of dollars on attention, right? So when you get your Credit Karma app, you download it, you put in your information. Credit Karma now knows your credit score, right? They know everything about you. So what they use that data to present you to credit card companies. Like if you have a 500 credit score, they're going to present you bad credit cards, and that's how they make all their money on things like that, just offers to you. But that's a form of advertisement. Those companies are paying Credit Karma to put those credit cards up there. They're not doing you a favor. They may look like it. They're like helping you out or whatever. Credit Karma is you doing that to make money. Those are advertisements. So Ravi said, if we can't get the app done ourselves, how can we partner with somebody like yourself? You can email me or DM me and talk about that later. I don't want to get into that now. So if you want to talk about that later, just DM me after this or send me an email. You can write me on Instagram or I'll give you my email address. So that's one way, right? And that's the number one way. That's how Facebook makes all their money. That's how Google makes all of their money, most of it, because now they sell services, but they make all their money on Gmail. How do you think they make money? They have an app. They have artificial intelligence that reads your emails, and they present you with offers and know more about you, so they can present you with offers. Why do you think the service of Google Home and Alexa is free? Because they listen to you and they figure out how they can present advertising to you. It's a great way to figure out what you need, what you're looking for, what you want, so they can put those offers right in your face when you need them. That's all advertising. So the other way is freemium, right? So freemium is a concept in which you offer a service for free at first. You say, hey, anybody can use this app for free. So when you get in there, there's certain features you can't access unless you pay for it. And a lot of games are like that, mobile app games. A lot of mobile apps are like that. Like you can't export, you can't do certain stuff unless you pay. You can't, like a lot of the Instagram graphic apps are like that. You can't remove the watermark unless you pay. So that's what's called a freemium app. Is that you could download it, you can use it, but to get these extra features, you're gonna have to pay me. That's freemium. Software as a service is a recurring fee. So every month, every year, you pay somebody to use that software. So when you do that, you have to also provide tech support though. So you have to have somebody that can help them through their problems. They can email tech support is just as good. But that's a great way that people make a lot of money, and that's what like Photoshop, Microsoft Word, all that stuff turned. They used to be pay for install, but now they're paid recurring fee because a recurring fee is a lot more powerful. It's a lot more cost effective for the company because you're always getting a source of revenue in. And the last way, and this is kind of a dying way, but it's still around, is the pay per install. And that's what Microsoft Word, that's what Photoshop used to be, is that you would pay for it. Photoshop used to be $2,000. That's how much it used to cost back when I was young in college. But now it's like, what, $60 a month or something, $40 a month? Because they changed it to software as a service. Because over time, people have learned that software as a service is a better way to make money because it's recurring and because it's a source of income that constantly comes in. So a lot of the pay-per install model is kind of going away, but there's still people out there that do that. So Max asks, so can I just do online advertising? I don't know what that means. So let's look at some of the questions here. Okay, so Rafi asks, what kind of skills will we need to look for a developer that can build off code, Kenny? We already answered that. I think those questions have already been answered. So we've already went over that. So now we're going to develop our first application, right? I'm going to tell you guys what software engineering is, what software development is, a little bit of the history about it, and we're gonna actually go to this. We're gonna build our first application. We're gonna build an ATM-like application. So we're gonna build just a simple application that we can make deposits and withdrawals in a simulated ATM. It's pretty cool stuff. So for this part, and I sent you guys an email earlier. If you have two screens, it will work a lot better. Or if you have if you're watching this on a phone or iPad or a tablet, if you can use another screen to open up this compiler so that you're able to do your application, that would be great. So a lot of people don't know what a computer program is. What is programming? What are we talking about when we say computer code, source code, programming, software development? A lot of people don't understand really what that is, but all a computer program is a way to tell a computer to perform a task. That's it. So like I said before, a program is just a big task that's broken down into smaller tasks. So we have to write the code on each line to break that code down into smaller tasks. Okay, so if an app has a paying option from a service provider, what system do you suggest so the transaction can be protected? I don't know. Could you rephrase that question? I don't understand it. So it's a source code that will instruct the computer what to do. If the app has a paying option from a service provider, what system do you suggest so that this transaction can be protected? Do you mean like do you mean the payment transaction? Yeah, Max, we're recording this. So after this is over, everybody will get a copy of this after this is over. So yes, it's being recorded. So after it's over, it'll be compiled and sent out to everybody that's on this presentation. I don't understand that question. You have to rephrase it. I apologize. Maybe I'm just reading it wrong. All right, so all a computer program is broken down line by line, tell the computer what instructions to do. That's it. And the instructions are down to the basic instructions. It can go one lower than that, but we don't know how to read zeros and ones. So a computer, and people don't know this, computers don't make mistakes. A computer is as close to perfect as you can be. They don't make mistakes. They do exactly as told. The only way a computer can make a mistake is because they were given imprecise instructions. And that's what I love about computer science is that computers are almost they can still do crazy weird stuff, but a computer is basically a machine that follows instructions. So it follows them to a T. 99.999% accurate. It's almost perfect. So whenever you see a bug, whenever a program crashes, whenever something like that happens, it's because of a human error. It's not because of the computer. Computer doesn't make mistakes. Humans make mistakes. So PayPal can be used as a swipe or as a payment gateway. Is this your own site? What app will you be using to create our own app during the presentation? So we're going to use an online compiler. And if you see the pinned message at the top, it's a Java compiler online that you can download Java compilers too. But the problem with that is that you have to download the Java engine also. And I didn't want to get people confused with having to do two applications and install all this stuff. So we're going to use a online compiler. It's a lot easier. Is the link blocked? I guess it is. Let me see. The link here. We have to refresh it because maybe like a bunch of people going to use it now. Maybe it's crashing. I don't know. Well, I just keep refreshing it. It'll come back up. Yeah, it's working. You just have to refresh it sometimes. So, and back to what I said, computers follow instructions. They don't make mistakes. But you have to remember this too. A computer can only read zeros and ones. That's it. Binary code is it's called. Computers don't read English. They don't read, from the base of a computer is just zeros and ones going through the process. So when humans write, humans can't think in zeros and ones. I can't write 1,000 zeros and ones to tell the computer to turn on. I can't write 1,000,000 zeros and ones to tell the computer to open an application, right? So we have to use what's called source code. Source code is human readable language that we can instruct the computer what to do. And what takes when we write that language in source code. So we have to when we take that code, we have to compile it. It's called compiling. We compile that code into zeros and ones, and the computer can read it. So that's what. So humans use source code. Computers only read zeros and ones. So the intermediary there is what's called a compiler, and all software languages have it. All software languages have compilers. We write in source code. Humans write in source code. We use a compiler. That's what I told you guys to look at. That's what what the website is. We convert that code into zeros and ones so the computer can understand it. And that's every single language that's out there. That's what we do. So here's an example of what a program is, right? So let's say I'm a rich guy and I'm at my house. So I have a butler named Jeeves. So if I write a list and leave it on the counter, I say, Jeeves, I want you to do all this stuff for me while I'm out. I want you to, first, I want you to vacuum the living room. Second, I want you to go to the store. Third, I want you to buy apples. And four, I want you to return home. That's a set of instructions for my butler to do something, right? So I'm the commander of my butler. He goes out, he does the stuff. When I come home that night, all that stuff is done. It's the same thing with computers. You tell the computer to do a list of instructions. The computer does it at rapid speed. It's way faster than Jeeves could do it. And it returns at the end of the program with everything done that you asked it to. That's all programming is. It gets a lot more complicated than this, but that's the base of programming. It's just telling the computer instructions. The computer does it, and at the end of it, the program is ended. So if I want to tell the computer to display a message, to ask a question, and give the user a chance to answer the question, I would do it in source code. I would do it in code. I couldn't talk to the computer. Computers can't like Google Home and Alexa can speak to. They can if you lost sound, let me see. Refresh if you lost sound. So let's see what somebody says. Dirk says, this is great. What's the best website developer for a member-based organization? Okay, so yeah, we'll ask those questions later. So Dirk, hold that question to later. I'll tell you some good resources for that. All right, so back to what I was saying is that, so we want to tell the computer to display a message. We want to ask a question. We want to give the user a chance to respond. So how will we do that in code? So let's do it in code. Let's see what let's see what's the next one. Yeah, so let's open the code window. So let me know when you guys can see my window, right? And I'll let you guys follow along. So what we want to do is we want to ask the computer, we want to tell the computer to ask say hello Armando, ask a question, and then end the program, right? So we're gonna do that. Let me know if you guys can see my screen. All right, so what we're looking at here is what all you guys see on the screen. It's a basic program that they pre-fill your screen with. It's what's called a Hello World application. And this application is always what initial software engineers, software developers, the first program you do. All it is output to the system saying hello world. So right now, if we press run up at the top, the green button, we'll see it's compiling. And what compiling is that it takes your code here and it converts it to zeros and ones. And here's what it looks like on the screen right here. So all it said is hello world. So when we look at the code, we see public class, we see public static void, and we see these brackets. The brackets are there to enclose the code. So we want to say a class is just it's a structure to place a code inside of, right? So the brackets just say from here, this point to the next point, that code's going to be enclosed in there. Public static void main is the first. This is what's called a function. A function is a small part of a program that does a specific task. And this is the when Java runs, that's the first application. It always runs the main function first. So that's the reason why this is going to run. So what happens next is that the program starts up. It looks for the first function, which is main. Then it does a system printout of hello world, which we see down here. And that's all we see on the screen is a hello world. Hazel is right. If you leave one of these brackets out, the program won't run. The brackets are very important. And in Java, the case of the letters are important. You see in system where it's a capital S, if you change that to a lowercase s, it won't work. Some languages don't have that. Some do. So if I do it and try to run it, we should get an error. Yeah, you see we got an error down there, system out, print in, because if it's not a capital S, it won't run. It has to be a capital S. So the case and the brackets are very, very important. So you have to make sure that there's a opening bracket and a closing bracket on the functions and classes. So right now our program just says hello world, but we wanted to say hello Armando and ask how are you doing today, and we put in a response, right? So what we would do here is that this is the only command that this program runs. Everything else is just encloses it. So this is the only command this is running so far. Hello world, and we see it on the screen. So we want to make it say hello Armando. Who knows what we have to do next? Let's see if anybody knows what the next step is here. What do you think the next step here is, guys? How do we change this to say hello Armando instead of hello world? So we don't have to put in a new line of code because we already have the code there. We can just change it. We can change world to say Armando. Do that, run the program. Now it says hello Armando instead of hello world. Exactly, Lena, that's right. So we erase world and we type in my name. Now, if you guys run it, you'll see that it comes out of hello world. And this is what's called an output. That's all it is, an output, right? And this is textual output. So to make it come out in graphics, make it come out like we see on a regular computer takes a lot more work and a lot more, work. A lot more. It's more complex. But this is a base level computer, a base level software coding language where we can see how it works, right? So we replaced Armando, and it came out hello Armando down here. So now, what we said in the last slide is we want to make it say hello Armando. We want to ask how are you doing today, and then we want to wait for input, right, from the user. So let's do that, right? So in order to make another line of text come out, we have to do a copy of this line. We have to say system.out.println, print line, sorry. That's L, that's an L, LN. And we say, how are you doing today? Question mark. And like he said, semicolons are important. So we have to put a semicolon at the end of the line so that the computer knows that that statement or that instruction is terminated. Yeah, Tina, we're going to do that later. We're going to automate this code so that it works like an ATM. So we're going to change this. So just be patient here, and we're going to change this code so that we can make it accept input and react to that input. So we put a semicolon at the end of that line. So if we run this, now it's going to say, hello, Armando, how are you doing today? But if you see, the program terminated. So it didn't wait for us to put in any input. It just terminated because it was only 2 lines of code here. One for it to say, it said, this line says system out, which means out to the system. I want you to print 1 line that says, hello, Armando. That was achieved here. Then you do system out, print line. How are you doing today? That was achieved here. So now we're at the end of the program. Semicolon, semicolon, it's over. So it didn't wait for us to put in anything. It just, said, hello, Armando, how are you doing today? But we want the program to ask us what we're doing today, right? So that's what we're going to do, Sean. We're going to use the scanner. We're going to have to add the scanner to be able to, so we're going to add what's called we're going to import some extra code here. So Java has what's called external classes. So an external class is pieces of code that you can use to extend the functionality of your program. And we're going to do that here. We're going to extend this so that now we can accept code from the keyboard. So what you have to do is you have to import code. It's called Java. And remember, cases are important. So you have to make sure that the cases are the same as you see on my screen. So we're importing the scanner. The scanner is what scans the keyboard for input. So now we've imported that, but we haven't. So if we run the code, we'll see that it runs, but it's not going to ask us for any input because even though we imported the code so that now this program can scan the keyboard, we haven't added any code for instructions for it to do so. So we still have to add those instructions. We included the code to scan the keyboard. We haven't put the instructions to do so. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to catch up. If you've caught up, just put yes there. Let me see if I can make it bigger. What about now? Let me get rid of this up here. It's just, this is just, all this code at the top is just what's called a comment. It doesn't matter anyway. I'll give you guys another minute to catch up here, and then we'll go forward. So right now, all that came out to the screen. Hello, Armando. How are you doing today? So we wanted to ask a question, right? We want input to come into the screen. So in order to capture that input, we have to use what's called a variable. Variables in software development are used to temporarily store data. So if something happens, something changes, something has to be modified, we have to use what's called a variable. A variable is simply a bucket. It's like a bucket to store data. So if I was gonna send somebody if I wanted to send you some water, I would put it in a bucket and let you carry it over there to you, right? It's the same concept, right? I don't have the input box available on my page. Yeah, you do. It's just we haven't done that yet. Anybody have it? First of all, before we start doing the scanner, before we start accepting input, are you guys? Everybody understand what's going on so far? Any questions? See the questions. See if we got any here. So was it? Hansel says, I'm still a bit confused over a scanner keyboard. Why to import it? Okay, so what we did is that when we put this line at the top, it says import Java utility scanner, right? So Java is a huge network of code, right? A base of code, right? So when we started, we have it's like adding features to a car. Like if we start with the base model, right? I go and get a brand new Cadillac Escalade. I get the base model. The car runs. The car is good, but doesn't have all the features we want, right? So every time we add a feature, we have to add an import line. So if we want we want our brand new car to have ability to scan the keyboard, right? So we add a feature, Java utility scanner. That's all we're doing is we're adding features to a base model of a car or a program. So right now, when you start a program, any program in any language, it comes out as a base model. It's a bare bones program. Anytime you need different functionality, you need different stuff, you have to add in different classes. Now, class is just extra functionality, basically. So what we did is we added in the scanner so that we can scan the keyboard because we have to accept input right now, right? So right now, if you see, we said hello, Armando. That's output. We said, how are you doing today? That's output. Now we should have a blinking cursor here, accept an input. We don't have that now because we didn't put the instruction to the keyboard, instruction in the program to ask for it. That's what we're going to do right now. In order for us to do that, we have to first add the feature, and that's what we did at the top. How do you get the second system line to appear? I typed it out. Let's do it again. We put system dot out dot print. It all loads itself. And you have to use quotations, and it's what's called a literal. It means it's going to come out exactly like you put it. You have to use quotations. How are you doing today? You typed it down. We add the semicolon. If you have an error, it's because you probably missed a semicolon or something's wrong. Maybe I would say it's either a quotation or a semicolon that's off. Just double check your code and make sure that it's everything's right. Exactly. It has to be exactly right. Computers don't know what you're putting. Yes, the case has to be right. That means capitalization has to be right. The parentheses, the quotations, and the brackets all have to be right for it to work. If not, you'll get an error. So, are you okay, Kaina? Yeah, Sean's right. You have to be very careful with the casing. It's what's called case sensitive. Some languages aren't case sensitive, some are. VB.net, VB is not case sensitive. You can type it however you want to, but Java is case sensitive. You have to, if the case is off, the compiler, which takes this code and converts it into zeros and ones, don't understand what it's looking at. It throws an error. So why do you have to put import Java at the top? You have to put it before the main class. That's the only place it accept it. You can't because remember, you have to import it before the program starts running. If not, like you can't import it later. It doesn't work. It has to be at the top. If you put it at line 10, it wouldn't work because it has to be outside the main class. This is the main class. So you're telling it, this program basically says before you do anything, import this new feature and then begin the application. If you put it anywhere else, it wouldn't work. An import line has to be at the top. And that's almost in every language. How do you get the toolbar at the top? It's up there all the time. I just made it bigger. All right, so we're gonna move ahead here. We only have we still got time, so I'll let you guys I'll give you guys a couple minutes to ask questions, catch up. We got about 40 minutes to finish this, so we'll be finished. Yeah, I'm not gonna ask any questions about languages and stuff until the end because right now we're just we're just getting through this application. At the end, I'll open up for questions. You guys can ask questions. All right. So once we get this line of code now, we want to make it run. I always like to run programs constantly because then you can catch errors before they get out of hand. So now that it runs, we know that everything is error free and we're able to add more commands. So I want you guys to run it. Make sure you can replace this with your name too. You can put your own name in there. Sean or Kim or April, put your own name in there. But just make sure that it comes out and you get a green. It finished with exit code 0. Exit code 0 means there was no issues. So that's a good thing. So make sure you get it to compile correctly. Then we'll start with accepting input from the keyboard. Give you guys another 30 seconds to get that done. Just put yes when you got it done, no issues. All right. We got enough people there. They have it done. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the next step. So we need to add accept input from the keyword. We already imported the feature, but we haven't put the instruction for the application or to know what's going on. So now we're going to put the instruction so that the program will know what to do. Just because the feature is there, don't mean we can it knows what to do. We have to tell it what to do. So there's one way first of all we have to declare the scanner object. So the way we do that is that, and you have to do this exactly like it is, we have to create an object. And the object is simply something that we want to use in the application. It's more complicated than that, but right now it's just something we need to use a variable or to hold some data or to hold something. Like I told you about the bucket idea, it's a variable. So this variable type is called scanner. We're going to name it my scan. It's gonna be new scanner, and we're gonna say it's gonna come from system.in. We're gonna put semicolon. So right now we use system.out to spit out messages, but we use system.in to accept it. So now we have a new object called myScan, right? It's a variable that we can use in the program. Let me know when you guys get that far. So what we do now is we can run it to make sure that everything runs okay. Still not going to do anything. It's just there. So there's no errors. We know everything's okay. We can move on to the next step. So this code up here doesn't actually accept the input. It just allows us to access it. So this imported the feature. This allows us to access the feature. And now we have to put the instruction to actually implement the feature. All right, did you guys compile it? Everything looks okay. Let's see some yeses out there and we'll move forward. All right, don't say anything, so I'm gonna assume you guys it's going okay. So all right, so remember, just to reiterate, we this is where we added the feature. This is where we allowed access to the feature. Now we're gonna actually tell the computer to implement that feature, right? So the way that we do that is we have to create a variable, and we're going to call this variable. We're gonna do it as a string. So we're going to say let's say input my input. We're set it. Let's just do this. So this is another bucket. It's a string. A string so variables have types, right? So a string is just a type of variable. It just means letters and numbers. It's going to go into this bucket. So this is a temporary bucket that we're going to store something inside. We're going to store whatever you type in the keyboard inside this bucket so that we can hold it and use it later. So this is all we did. We created a bucket to put some data into. So we call that bucket my input, and we gave it a type of string. And that's just a different, like you could put int for numbers, you could put string for letters and numbers, you could put, this is a different types of strings. You guys will learn that later. So, and what we're going to do is that bucket, we're going to say, we're going to put what's coming in from the keyboard inside that bucket. We're going to say my scan dot next line. We're going to say my scan dot next line. Needs to be a capital. Well, missed it. See, you got to be careful with your case. So what we're going to do is we're going to scan the keyboard. We're going to say whatever the next line that comes from the keyboard after somebody presses enter, I want it to go into this variable. We haven't done anything with it now. So let's run it. We got an error there. So see, I messed up here. It's a capital S here. All right. So right now we see that the cursor is blinking, right? Yeah, string should be capitalized. Thank you, Victor. I didn't see it. You got to pay attention to capitalization. So now we see that the program is waiting for my input, right? There's a cursor blinking. So the program is still running. It's stopped completely. So the program right now is stopped on this line 12, waiting for my input. So this program will sit there forever until I put something in that spot. The program is stuck until it's because it's scanning the keyboard waiting for input. So until I put something in there like fine, then the program ends. So when I put that fine in there, it goes from here and it goes inside this variable. So, but then the program ends, so it's gone forever. But we can use this variable for to create another message. And I'll show you guys. We can say system. Are you guys, before we move forward, is everybody okay with this? Did everybody compile okay? Did it look okay? Is anybody stuck with anything? Everybody's good. Everybody compiled it. Everybody got that blinking cursor. All right. So now, after we finish that, we put something in there. Error. So what's your error, Antoine? Antone. What's your error, Lorena? So if you're getting the error, make sure you check check like my string was. I had okay. Error cannot find symbol. My input scan symbol variable type 1 scan enter. So Anton, do you on line 1? Do you have this up there where it says import Java utility scanner? So make sure. Okay, so Lorena and Anton, make sure you have this and this there exactly like it's written, because that's what it looks like that error is. It's like you don't have either this or you don't have this. So you have both of those. Angel, paste your error. So Lorena, if you have the error that you're having, no line found at 15, it's because you don't have this or you don't have this. That's the only way that error can come up. You don't have line 6 or you don't have line 1. And Kim, your error is because you don't have a semicolon somewhere. So make sure your lines terminate in a semicolon. Every line that's inside, not every line that these lines 6 through 12, make sure they all terminate in a semicolon, because that's what your error is. See, Luis cannot find symbols because you didn't include the features. You see, import Java scanner, you didn't include that. You didn't include this or this. That's the only way. That's why I can't find the symbol. Where did you, Tom, find that? I don't understand that. I'll type that in. No problem. So yeah, I'll put this on YouTube later. So if you guys, so Angel, did you figure out that problem? All right, so we'll move on since I think nobody's saying they have any errors anymore. So current expected system printout. Hello, Armando. Expected. So yeah, so on line 8, you don't have a semicolon at the end of the line, kind of. That's what it is. So if you see on my screen, I have a semicolon here. You don't have that. It has to be at the end of the line. Okay, on yours, Antoine, the next line, the L in next line is not capitalized. If you see here, my L is capitalized, yours isn't capitalized. So you have to capitalize that L. Remember, capitalization is important. So let's move on. We only got a few minutes here. So uh, we still have to do the ATM program. So right now, now I want to show you guys how you can take this variable and you can use it. So we're going to do another system.print line. So we're going to say system.out.print ln, and we're going to say I am glad you are doing, and we're going to add that variable back in here. We're going to say plus, see if this works. We may need we probably need a semicolon there. Forgot about it. All right. So it ran okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another line. We're going to put another line out to the screen, and we're going to say, I am glad you are doing, and we're going to end it. We're going to do a plus. So what the plus does is it adds 2 strings together. My input is going to be whatever came in from the keyboard. So that whatever we put in on the keyboard gets moved into this variable, and now we can use it in other places. We can check it. We can use it. We can use it in different phrases or whatever we want. So what we did here is we put it inside our own phrase. We're going to say, I am glad you are doing whatever you put in. It's going to go out to the screen. So let's run this, and now I'll answer any questions. So the computer now says, hey, Armando, how are you doing today? I'm just going to say, I'm doing great. Just put great. Press enter, and then the computer writes back, I am glad you are doing great. We run it again, and we're going to say, good. How are you doing today? We're going to say good. So it changes it again. I'm glad you're doing good today. So whatever we put in, that's what gets put into this bucket. And it completes the phrase here. Everybody understand so far? Any problems? So Kim still has an error. So Kim, you're missing a semicolon somewhere. You see all these semicolons on the end of the lines? One of your lines don't have one. That's where you keep getting an error. Whenever there's a parsing error, it's because you didn't terminate something correctly. Either maybe you don't have these two. You don't have. Make sure the brackets are right too. Now, Kim, something's off. You have to look closely. The error you're getting is simple. It says that either the brackets are off or the semicolons aren't there. So count up your semicolons. You should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So count them and tell me if you have 6. So count them and tell me if you have 6. If you have 6, it's okay. If not, you should, and you also should have 1, 2, 3, 4 brackets. And if you have 4 brackets, so you have an extra one somewhere. Yeah, so there's something wrong. So yeah, you should only have 6. 1, 2. Oh, you have 7 if you count the top one. I'm sorry. So there are 7 if you include the first one. So if you have 7, you should have 4 brackets, 2, 3, 4. And then if those aren't what's wrong, it's the parentheses. So make sure all the parentheses are there, and make sure all your quotations are there. So you should have quotations around everything. Make sure everything's green. Yeah. All right. So Kim, did you get that issue fixed? All right. So we're gonna have to move on. So okay. Make sure everybody compiles this. Make sure you get it to tell when everybody has this working like this. Make sure you put yes in the chat box, and we'll move on to the ATM application. We'll start. We got to start another application anyway. So everybody run it. Make sure that the variable gets put in there. Make sure the response comes out. It changes depending on what you put in. And once you got that going, just put yes in there. And so I know you guys got it. And we'll move on. All right. So most people got it. So we're gonna move on. So April, let me see what a program. April, my scan. Okay. So with April, in that line it says my input, next line, you didn't capitalize the L. It's next, and the line is a capital L. That's your problem. Let me see if I can write. I'll write you. All right. So since most people have it, we're gonna start another application. We're gonna start an ATM application here. So what we're gonna do to start this over, we're gonna erase lines 6 through 14. We're going to erase this top line. So this is what you should have starting the next application. You should just have public class. You should have this. You should have 4 brackets, and then run it to make sure it looks okay. It's gonna close immediately, and that means your code's clean. That's where we want you guys at right now. So yeah, I mean, so we're gonna start a new application here. So make sure this is all you have on the screen is you have public class main and you have public. So this is just the base bare bones of an application. You have to have this to run. So we're gonna delete everything except this. Then we're gonna start building our ATM application. That'll be the last thing we'll build tonight. So guys, let me know when you have your screen set to back to the base again, so we can start this ATM applications. So with the ATM application, we're going to use if and else statements. So an if statement is how computers make decisions. That's the base building block of how a computer makes a decision. We say if this, do this. If not this, do that. So that's how computers make decisions based on input. So what we're going to do in this ATM application is we're going to build first of all a menu, so that the user will be able to choose from the menu what they want to do, make a deposit, make a withdrawal, check the balance, or close the application. And then we're going to let you make a deposit, we're going to let you make a withdrawal, and we're going to keep track of the balance. So the first thing we need to do is we need to put some more outputs, right? We have to create a menu. So let's create a menu. So we're going to say system.out.println. I don't know why I did that. We're going to put our quotations and we're going to say, good morning. Good morning. What do you want to do? Second line, we're going to do the same thing, system.out.print. We're going to say, we're going to create our menu. We're going to say 1, withdrawal. We're going to say 2, we're going to say deposit. If you use a lot of the drop downs, I mean, it helps you build the application. That's what's called an IDE. A lot of the systems that you use to build applications do that. So if you just follow that and you follow the case in there, you won't make as many mistakes. We're going to say 3. We're going to say check balance, semicolon, and 4. We're going to say quit. So that's our menu. We're going to run it to make sure it works okay. Looks good. So we have a menu there. Good morning. What do you want to do? Withdraw, deposit, check balance, quit. So that means there's no errors. We're ready to go. So let me know when you guys get that far. So the 2 things we're going to discuss in this code is a while loop, and we're going to discuss the if and else statement. So those are 2 things that all computers need in order to run. So if you see what happened here is that we ran this code and it ran and that was it. It just quit. So how do we keep this running forever until we press number 4? That's when we use what's called a while loop. There's different types of loops in software engineering and software development, but a while loop is what we use when we want to continue processing it until some kind of an event happens. In this case, until we press 4. So now we have to do it again like we did before. So somebody tell me what the next step is here. We want to accept input from the keyboard. What do we do now? What's the first step here? If you can remember from the last application. So what's the next step here? We want to accept key input from the keyboard like we did in the last application. That's right, Luis. We want to do import Java. We want to include that feature in the top of our application. So import util. So now we have that implemented. So the second step is we have to include the feature down here. So we're going to do another scanner, another object called scanner. We're going to call it my_scan. And we're going to say equals new scanner system dot capital N. Let's put a little comment here. So this comment, no, we'll just do that later. I don't want to confuse anybody. So now we have our scanner. So what we do is we run it to make sure there's no issues. Runs and we're okay. So we imported the scanner. We added the feature inside of our code. Now we're able to use it. So I ran it to make sure it worked okay. Looks okay. So let me know when you guys get that far. Good job, Lena. Aisha, great. All right, good job, Nelson. Good job, Luis. Good job, Kara. Good job, Sean, Antoine, Victoria, Tasha. Good job. So everything checked out okay. So right now, all we have is a menu and the program exits, right? So we don't want it to exit. We want it to continue processing until we put in the number 4, right? So we have to accept a number. So it's going to be a little different than what we did before. Before we were accepting a line, now we want to accept a number. So we still have to import the feature. We still have to implement the feature at the top on line 6. But now we have to accept a digit, a number from the keyboard instead of characters. So it's a little bit different here. Is that we say we have to create a variable like a bucket like we did before to hold the data. So we're going to do what's called an int. An int is just an integer, a number. So we're going to say int option. We're going to call it my option. We're going to set this. That's all we're going to put. Int my option. Let's make it equal to 0. So we're going to start it out as equal to 0. So right now, when this line of code runs, this option is going to be 0. So when it's 4, we want to stop. When it's 0, we want to keep going. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say my option equals my scanner dot next. And last time we did line, this time we're going to do int. Next integer that comes in from the keyboard. We want it to go into that bucket, my option. We run it to make sure it looks okay. No issues, so we'll stop it. Let you guys catch up. So if you look at the code right now and we run it, run the code, it runs straight through and it stops, right? It waits for our input. So if we put in a number, let's say 2, the whole program ends. But we didn't press 4, we pressed 2 and the program still quit. So how do we program this so that it continues the programming, it continues processing until we put in the number 4? That's when we use what's called a while loop. A while loop, it takes a section of code, it loops it, it continues to run it until a certain criteria is met. Now, our criteria is my option has to equal 4. Right now, it equals 2 and it quit. So we want to say when it equals 4, I want you terminate the application. So the way we do that is we have to do what's called a while loop. And we wrap it around that the code we want to continuously process, right? So we say while, we want to say my option, and we use what's called a not equal sign. This is a not equal sign in program. It's an exclamation point in an equal. So that means not equal to 4. But our bracket, what we do is we put a tab here so we can, so it's easier to read like this. So whenever your software, you do it developing software, you always want to make it easy to read. So you always, whenever you put a bracket, you want to make sure you indent the next line of code. Then we end the bracket. So what we put here is we put this line, we put one bracket in the second bracket, which this bracket actually has to go down at the bottom under this. And this is also indented. So the indented code, all of this code here is what's going to keep running over and over and over until my option equal is not equal to equal to 4. This has to be an equals. While not equal, I'm sorry. But while it's not equal to 4, if it's 3, 2, 1, or whatever number, it's going to run it again, run it again, run it again until the 4, and my options equals 4, then the application stops. So let me know when you guys get that far, and we'll run it and see what happens. All right. So we'll run it and see what happens. Let's go. We run it. The menu comes up. We got a cursor asking us for, okay, so Jalen had an error reaching the end of file while parsing. So if that happens, you check your semicolons. You probably missed a semicolon somewhere on line. See that? It says 19. It's on line 19. So you probably missed a semicolon or you don't have a bracket somewhere. And it's on line 19. So go to line 19, copy and paste that, and paste it here for me, Jalen. Line 19, copy the code and paste it here, and I'll tell you what's wrong. Okay, so somebody asked, do you need a semicolon after the 4? No, you don't, because that's not a statement. That's a loop. Loops don't need a semicolon. So that's a good question, Monique. So Jalen, if you would copy your line 19, the lines are here on the side, and you paste it and tell me what's there. So you have that. So if that's there, so you have 2 brackets under there. So is it 3 brackets? 19, 20, and 21 all have brackets on the line? There you go. Can you see it now, Emmeline? So you probably don't. It's probably a bracket off somewhere. So you should have 2 brackets under that. Yeah, you should have 3. And now run it and tell me if it runs okay, Jalen. That's good, Monique. Good job. Okay, so Jalen, did you put the import statement on the top and also line 6? Is that in your code? Did you miss something? Yeah, something's off with your code. Either you didn't put line 1 or line 6 in the code. So if you look at my screen, you see line 1, you see line 6. All right, you got it? What error are you getting, Sean? Paste the error. Okay, so let me see your program. Yeah, your I is not capital. That's a good catch, Luis. That I in int has to be capital. That's what your problem is. Okay, let me see your error, Keith. So it says, cannot find symbol system.print in withdrawal. Yeah, okay, so on print in, is that an I or an L? Because I think you have an I there. It's supposed to be an L. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Yeah, yeah, you're right. So that's a good catch, Brent. It should be it has to be an exclamation point, and right next to it has to be the equal sign. That those two together make the not equals what's called an operator. So it's not equals. Okay, so Tina has an error. It says reach into file. Okay, so Tina, we just talked about it with somebody else. So at the bottom of your code, there should be three brackets, not two. There should be three. And that's what's causing your problem. Is you should count on 19, 20, 21. There should be brackets, a closing bracket. If you look at my screen at the bottom, there's three, and you probably only have two. We're not gonna be able to finish by 7. We're about 10 minutes from finishing though, so we're gonna go ahead and get forward. Let's go ahead and get finished. So we got the while option. We're very close to finishing. All we got to do is do a couple of if statements. We'll finish by like 7:10 or so. We're a little late, but we'll finish. If you guys want to leave, I'll make sure I send this out to you guys, so you guys will get a copy of it regardless. But yeah, I'm not trying to finish this by 7. If it's 7:10, 7:15, as long as I get you guys the information, I'm okay with that. We're all quarantined anyway, so can't like it's not like I can go out or anything tonight. And like I said, I love teaching anyway. I'm having fun. I don't know about you guys. And I used to be for years I was an instructor in college, and I used to teach this stuff. So I mean, at night. So I was doing it just for fun. But I got too many responsibilities of my other stuff, so I had to let that go. So I like teaching a lot. So I'm having fun. So Tina says, cannot find symbol my option. Okay, so that's because you see that your that you have a capital C after in my scan. You shouldn't have a capital C. It should be a lowercase c. All right. Okay, so let's check these other errors out. Tina has an error that says cannot find symbol my option equals my scan dot next int. Okay, so that line of code looks good. So Tina, do you have line 6 and line 1 there? Looks like you're missing either 6 or 1, or there's an error in that statement. I wish I could see you guys' screen. I don't know how to do that though. I wish I could. Uh, so Sheridan, I'm sorry, Sean, what's your error? Okay, let me see Angels. Let me see Angels error. So that'll kill two birds with one stone. Java. Okay, so good morning. What do you want to do? Okay, so no such exception. So okay, so we got a next hit scanner. Next hit scanner. Man, what do you want to do? Withdraw, exposit. So it went out. So let me see, Angel. Could you copy your the my option line and send it to me? Let me see what that looks like, because I think something's off there. So copy that line. On mine, it's line 17. So copy yours and paste it here so I can take a look at it. So Anton, so let me see that. Remember, guys, everything has to be exactly right. And I mean, the case, you can't miss a parentheses, a bracket, or a semicolon. It has to be exactly right. So I don't know if that's a capital Y. I can't tell. So Keith's is because I think you missed either line 6 or line 1. That's your problem. So my scan dot next int. Okay, so Angel, do you have line 6 there also? And line 1? Let me see your line 6 and line 1. And guys, pay attention to when we're figuring out these issues because a lot of people are having the same issues. And figuring out, struggling through things is a great way to learn. So this is also a way that we're all learning. We're all figuring things out. So pay attention to the way we figure things out, the way that we, solve things. So you got Java. You imported that. So what about line 6? Let's take a look at that. That's line 1. Good job, Miracle. Let's get everybody through this. Like I said, I can. All right, Angel. Okay, so we got scanner. It goes my scan, new scanner, system.in. Yeah, it's something off there, Angel. I don't know what's going on with your code. I'd have to see the whole code. Uh, Let me see if there's a way that maybe we could see other people's screens. Let's see if Angel. No, I can't do that. Pose handouts. Let's see if we can do it. Nope, can't do that. All right. Well, I mean, do you have underneath wall? Yeah. So underneath, yeah. So make sure you have these two parentheses under the wall. It should be an open bracket and a closed bracket. So you should have. So right now you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 brackets, 6 brackets on the screen. So count your brackets up and see if you can see them all there. Good job, Marcus. It was the one line that had need to be capitalized. Yes, a lot of the issues here, because this is simple code. So a lot of the issues are going to be capitalization, missing a semicolon, missing a bracket, or missing a parentheses. That's what almost all of you guys' problems are, or missing a line of code. All right, so Christina, your error, like I said before, is because either you missed a bracket or you missed a semicolon. One or the other. That's everybody's getting the same issues. It's that you're not. I can't see screenshots either. I don't know how else. We need to figure out a better way to do this. Because I can't. If I can see a screen, I can figure out instantly, but I can't see anybody's screen. So, if everybody that has it working so far, if you could put yes, and we'll see how many people has it, and then we can see if we can go forward or we have to stop. So, if everything's working so far for you, just press yes. All right, so we got most people got it working, so we got to move on. I don't want to take up too much people's time tonight. So right now, what the if you don't have it working, just follow along just to understand the concept. So right now we have a while loop. So right now, if you run the program, let's put this up. Run this program. It's gonna keep running. Like we can press 1, it's gonna run again. We press 2, 5, it's gonna run again. 0, it's gonna run again. Until we press 4, that's what the program says. While the option is not equal to 4, it's gonna keep running. Luis, did you need something, Luis? I see you raised your hand there. All right, so until we press number 4, which is what the program's asking for, we press 4, the program terminates. So now we have a while loop in our code. So the program will keep running until we hit 4. So what now we're going to do is we're going to create a withdrawal and deposit option and check balance option, right? So we have the way we do that is we have to create a bucket or a variable to put the balance in. So we're going to put int balance. We're going to set it to $500. 500. So right now in our account, it's $500. So that's what we did here. That's what this line is for. We're setting the balance to a set amount, $500. So when the program starts, the balance is 500. So if you guys can add that line 8. So after you add it, remember we run it, make sure everything runs okay, and then we can press quit. We just want to make sure it compiles. Once it compiles, we know we have no errors. Good job, Emmeline. Yeah, if you guys could share your code, I could take a look at it if you can use that app. But so everybody has Sean, you good? You got it? All right, good job, Tina. So right now, let's look at our code. Let's look at it. So we have a while loop, so it keeps running. We print out the menu, and we accept input, and we set the balance to $500. So right now, we want to do. Let's make it. Let's let it take a withdrawal out, right? So how do we do that? We have to subtract a number from the balance. So we also need an if statement because we want to make sure if somebody puts in a number 2, or I'm sorry, number 1, that we can the computer can make a decision on what to do next. So we achieve that with what's called an if statement. We say if my option, which is what's coming in from the keyboard, is equal to 1, which is the we set here is for the withdrawal option. We put our semicolons there again, and whatever's in between this code is what we're going to run if the option is equal to 1. So these are the 3 lines we added. We put an if statement. We say if option is equal to 1, we want to print a message out. We want to say system.out.print on, and we're going to say how much do you wish to withdraw? We're just going to say how much. Then we're going to input the number, semicolon here. We're going to say the balance is equal to the balance. And it sounds weird to say that. We want to make, because remember, we're dealing with buckets here. So right now, the number 500 is in this balance, right? So we're going to say, and we're going to create a formula over here. We're going to say minus, we're going to say my scan. If you get confused here, make sure you ask me. Next int. So what this line does, I'm going to run it, make sure it works, and we'll stop it. So we got an error here. So line 29, where's line 29? We got an error. So we figured this out. We just go backwards until the error goes away. All right, so it's still there. Still there. So something's off here. So let me see, put the brackets back. Let's see, maybe we add an extra bracket. Yeah, that's what happened. There was an extra bracket in there. So let's type it all back out again. System.out.print line. We're going to say how much. You have to put, okay, so remember, one exclamation point and one equals, that means not equals. Two equal signs equals equals. So inside of an if statement, you have to put two equal signs. Outside of if statement, you have to put one equal sign. We're going to say how much. We're going to say balance equals balance minus my scan dot, let me see, my scan dot next int. Run it, see what happens. It should run now. There we go. Everything looks okay. So this is the code that we added here. We put an if statement that says how much, we put an if statement that says if the option equals 1, we're telling the computer if the option equals 1, do the code between these lines. So the code between these lines is that the computer is going to print out how much. And then what it's going to do is going to take whatever number you put in, it's going to subtract it from the balance. Let's say, for example, on this one, if you put in 250, it's going to take that $500 balance, subtract the 250, and now the new value of my balance is 250. And now going forward, it's going to be 250. Yeah, don't worry about it, Keith. I mean, it's going to be complicated to everybody at first until you figure it out. Yeah, I mean, I remember, and I'll tell you guys a quick story where we're waiting for everybody to catch up. Is that Keith? The first time I took a programming class, I remember I was at 19, 18 years old. I went to college, and I sat in my first programming class, and the teacher put all this crazy stuff on the board, man. I didn't know what was going on, and I walked out that day, and I dropped the class. It took me another year and a half before I was able to go back in that class. So sometimes this stuff is intimidating at first. But I mean, it just takes time. You keep pushing yourself, you keep working with it, and eventually you get a snap, you get an epiphany, and now all of a sudden it all works. You just have to keep pushing yourself. If you really want to do this, you have to keep pushing yourself, keep working, and one day, that's what happened to me. Everything just makes sense. All of a sudden it happens. You wake up one morning, you've been struggling through it all the time, and all of a sudden everything you've learned is made sense in one moment. And that's what happened to me. And that's the only way you achieve that is by keep working, keep pushing, because you're actually retaining this information. You're just not you're not connecting it yet. You're not putting it all together. So you're learning all this stuff separately, independently. Then one day you're going to be working with this, maybe tomorrow, maybe 6 months from now, maybe a year from now. All the connections instantly come into place. And then you learn, everything. You know how it works, you understand it. And then that's when the real learning happens, because it's a rapid growth after that. The first struggle is making the connections, which is hard. But after you finish it, it's easy after that. It's like me right now. I've been doing this for 15 years. When I first started, it was rough. Now, you could put me in front of a computer language I've never seen, and I could figure it out in 15 minutes. And program in it. It's because I have so much experience. I understand the connection so well that I can now do. I can do anything I want. You could put a code that I didn't even create in front of me, and I could break it down and change it. And a lot of engineers can't do that. And that's because it's not because I'm a genius or nothing like this, because I have so much experience that I've been able to hit those epiphanies. So, what happened to my other one? That's weird. Let's run it. So we're gonna run it now. What we're gonna do, so we don't need to run it now. We just have to make sure it's working. So we're gonna add another option here, and this is where we're gonna end it, right? Because we don't want to because we're kind of over in time anyway. We're going to add an else statement, an else if statement here, right? So what that does is it adds to this statement and it makes a combined statement. We're going to say if else, and we're going to say if the option equals balance, which is number 3. We're going to say if the option equals number 3. Let me see. We want to print out the balance, so we're going to say system.out.println. And we're going to say your balance is, we're going to put this and we're going to add the balance. We're going to do another system out. And we're going to say, we're just going to put the balance there. So we run it. So now let's look at our app right now so far, right? So we say the menu comes up. So we say, what do you want to do, right? So let's say we want to do a withdrawal. Set a withdrawal. We say, how much? We say $5. So now we want to check the balance. We press 3. The balance here is $4.95. We subtracted $5 from the balance. So now let's say we want to do another withdrawal. We say number 1. Let's say this time we want to take $200 out. Now we check our balance again. See the price is now. The balance is now $2.95. You see, it's subtracting from the balance every time we put a new balance in, a new withdrawal in. So that's just a simple ATM. So ATM machines work just like this, except it's more complicated, more security. Same thing, same concept. So how many people actually got this far and finished it? I want to see a show of hands of people that finished the application. Good job, Alonzo, Lena, Jalen. Good job. Good job, Nicole, Adrian. Way to do. Good job, Luis. Tasha, good job. Jay Wells has a question. Good job, Sophia, Carlos, DeLorean. I don't know. I'm sorry, I missed your name. Troy, Ness, Natalie, Victoria, Sean, Zakari. Man, a lot of people finished it. Good job, guys. Sean, good job, man. Sean's actually my brother. He's my brother, so I'm glad he joined tonight. Okay, so I'm sorry. So we actually just so what we've done tonight since we're finished. So Ness, how do you not show the options again after the balance? You have to do a little bit more complicated programming to get all this to work, seamlessly. So we're not going to do that tonight. We don't have the time. But what we've done tonight, what we've just finished in 2 hours, that's the whole first 3 or 4 weeks in a computer science class. So what you guys have achieved tonight is 2 or 3 weeks of what a normal computer science class would be. It would take before you got to these concepts, before you got to these if statements and the while loops or whatever. You would have to, this is 2 or 3 weeks into a class, and we were able to achieve that in one night. So great job, guys. Great way to learn. And that's amazing that we were able to do that. You guys have been amazing tonight. So okay, so can you show me the beginning of the code? Yeah, so take a look. Let me see. I can make it smaller, but move this over, move this down. So you can see the whole thing. So Zachary, so I'll tell you guys what I'm doing while somebody's looking over the code. So what I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna offer free classes like this every so often. I'm gonna offer free classes. Free classes of software engineering. We're gonna build programs because I say I like doing this. I do like it, but I'm offering an advance like it's two things I'm gonna offer besides that. I'm gonna offer a free class. I've decided that tonight because I kind of like it. I kind of like working with you guys, but I'm also gonna have a paid class. It's gonna be a 2 or 3 week intense class. It's gonna be a lot more intense than just the daily lessons. So that one is gonna cost more cost. I'm gonna have to put a price on that because it's gonna require a lot of work to get that going. So I'm gonna have to sell that, and it's gonna be 3 or 4 hours a day plus one-on-one instruction or whatever. But and another thing I'm going to include as an add-on to that class is the business side of software engineering. I'm going to go into more in depth, more into different business concepts. So that's what I'm working on right now. So I'll send you guys an email. I don't know what the price is going to be yet. So next week I'm going to do another class like this on a different topic, different topic in technology. So you guys, mostly basic stuff. So I'm going to do this every week because, like I said, I liked it. I'm going to I'll do a Corona price. So I'll make sure you guys get before the end of the week, you'll get a invite to that class. So what I'm going to have is, like I said, I'm going to have a free class I'm going to do every week because I really enjoyed this, guys, and I appreciate you guys taking part. And I'm going to have a more intense class that's gonna be somebody that really really wants to take this as a career, really wants to kind of make themselves into a software engineer. So, and then that's going to be an add-on on that class about the business side. So, if you take both of those classes in about a month, you should come out of that with the solid knowledge to be able to start building your own products. So that's really what I want people to get uh, when they leave that class. But like I said, I'm going to offer that free class probably once a week, just to whoever wants to learn. And like I said, I'll do different topics. This week was Java. Next week I may do .NET, VB.NET. Next week I'll do WordPress or HTML. So I'll mix it up. Yeah, thanks, Pete. Yeah, so thank you guys for your time, like I said, and I really appreciate it. If I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to ask questions, and I'll shut it down for tonight. Let you guys get some sleep. Let you guys get with your families. Go back to quarantine mode. Emmeline, thank you for that. I really try hard with this stuff because, like I said, I love teaching, and I really want people to understand this. I'm not, and that's how it was when I was a teacher in school. Like in college, I would make sure everybody learned, knew what they were talking, knew what was going on. It's really really important to me that people understand. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. So Pete, yeah, like I'm saying, and if you guys could do me a favor, even if you take the free classes, just help me when I post it online. Just help me advertise it. Uh, just share it on your Instagrams. Just for the free classes, I'd really appreciate that if you guys could do that. Just share it so I can get some more exposure. That would help me a lot. So that'll actually help me provide more free classes. So thanks, Kim. Thank you, Travis, Robert, Jameen. So Sean, yeah. So that's one thing I want to end with is that, like I said, I was an instructor in college, and first in junior college and at a university also, and I realized that people that's been in the industry more, people that's been around, and actually developed out in the field, they can they can teach a little better because a lot of instructors never left the university. They went to school, they got their bachelor's, got their master's, got their PhD, then they went directly into teaching. So a lot of them don't have the communication skills or the understanding on a technical level or to convey this information. They're so high level PhD level that they can't explain it on a lower level. And like I've done this for years. I've explained it for years to people. I've taught school. I've had my companies where I had to explain these complicated concepts to people who knew nothing. So I'm very good at that. Yeah, I'll take my page off private. Yeah, I will. That's good. How far should the bracket be away on line 32? There's 4 brackets down there. All right. So if you have any other questions, just message me on Instagram, send me an email. So I'm gonna let you guys go tonight. So I appreciate your time, appreciate your patience with me, and I hope you guys learned something, which from what I can tell you did. So hope you guys have a great night. I'll save the recording and I'll send it to you guys. So if you want to look at it again, you want to, go over this again, you can look at it. And you could try it, do it again to make sure it sinks in. So thank you guys and have a great night.